going to start working. Great to have all of you here. Thank you for coming and joining us. We have an exciting long day of learning ahead of us. Again, I said it again today. This would not be possible without all the support, starting with Baptist, going through all our sponsors, and I'm not going to name them because I'm going to be unfair. We'll forget something and somebody. Our faculty, AJ, Demetrius, Tudor, Lucy, Ansar, Raul that could not be here, Dr. Valdivelo that's going to be here this afternoon, Matt Gunas. So everybody that made this possible locally or nationally to come here and donate their time and be here with us, sharing their experience. We're going to start with Demetrius Lopez from Chicago, Porto Alegre / Chicago, talking to us about AI in acute stroke setting. Demetrius, please.
Good morning, everyone. So this is, I have to say, probably the second most interesting talk of today for me. I think if we can go back one slide. Yes. So yesterday night, it was clear to me that a lot of people were not really very much aware of the project that we have going on in Chicago now. So just to summarize a little bit of and give you some context to you and how AI is important on building a stroke network. So for almost 20 years, I was in a university setting in downtown Chicago. And there was an opportunity about first 6 years ago. And then I decided the opportunity was to join a local network of hospitals. And about 4 years ago, this network of hospitals now merged with another network of hospitals in Wisconsin. So form was called the Advocate Aurora Health System. So at that point, I decided to move from the university setting to this new network. The network is literally exactly the same amount of time that I've been there is when the network merged. So we are still going through the merging process. And I think this talk will show you a little bit of that. But the idea is that how do you, between Wisconsin and Illinois, with Milwaukee and Chicago being involved, 27 hospitals, how do you build this together? How do you put this network together? Next. Oh, I can do that, sorry. And then, so the main issue is that stroke, of course, in a region like this is a disease that has a difficult diagnosis. It's very time sensitive, and there is a lack of system of care coordination. Remember, when we did our trials, Swift Prime, Dawn trial, all these trials, we were actually downtown Chicago receiving all these patients to downtown. Everything was done in one hospital downtown. We got the numbers, we knew what to do. So the standard of care was actually created, and the concept of comprehensive stroke center and the tier care was all in place before we joined this network. So we had a very good idea of what we are looking for. So we just had to coordinate this and look at this around Lake Michigan. As you can see here, all our hospitals are from Green Bay all the way down to the southern part of Chicago. Christ Hospital is about 220 miles of land that has about 27 hospitals between that. And in two major cities, but a lot of countryside too. So you have a mix of hospital sizes. Just to give you an idea here, Lutheran General Hospital, 623 beds. Then you have, Christ Hospital and the Milwaukee St. Luke's Hospital. These are also 600 to 700 beds hospitals. The others are smaller, 200 beds, 400 bed hospitals. And so we had the opportunity was to build this integrated stroke network, we call, and we create first a tier system level of care. So within the system, you do have comprehensive, we have 5 comprehensive stroke centers, and all the other hospitals are primary stroke centers. And so it's a multi-hub and spoke system, basically. And the most important issue is like we also created 3 centers of advanced care. And this is like the places where you do most of the AVM and most sophisticated intervention. This is how we separated those different categories. So a little bit different than what DNV and Joint Commission will ask you to do. But the importance of this, especially for acute stroke care, was that we had to have a patient, for example, you can see here, hospitals that are pretty far away, we had to have a communication system between the hospitals. So the most important thing, and this is what the integrated stroke network means, and if we one day can create a designation by Joint Commission or DNV to be certified as an integrated stroke network, what that means is that you prove efficiency, that within your network, if a patient gets to any hospital within your network, the level of care is standardized, that we can make it faster than if you have to do a diversion protocol farther away to a hospital outside of the network, not justifying that. So we can create an entry point anyway in the system, and that would prove to be a better workflow than trying to divert patients. So that means you had to build a team. You have to have we had all the AI that was essential for us to build this. So I think this is when we start getting to our talk. But today, you know, we use Rapid, we use Viz AI. We also have a communication platforms independent of Rapid and Viz AI that's called Join. And we had to have a patient command center as well as a telestroke system, and a few more things to come. So this is we have about 12 to 13 give and take interventionalists on the team. So you had to coordinate the care between all these different operators. And here you have radiologists, you have neurologists, you have neurosurgeons all involved here. We had this patient comment said, this is a standalone, it's a building in Downers Grove, Chicago, that has every hospital in the system. Well, their bed availability, the time to the traffic information. We have a partner of ambulance service that is doing the hospital-hospital transfers that is actually in-house. And this is a call center. They receive the calls, they assign, see which hospitals have the bed within the system. Remember, when you're a multi-hub and spoke system, you have 5 comprehensive stroke centers to send the patient to. So you have to see which one has the bed, which one is ready to go and closer to that patient. And if you don't have that, you go to the closest hospital, get the care started, and then you transfer to your comprehensive stroke center if needed. So the telestroke deployment was key. So all those hospitals, remember, doesn't matter if you're in a rural Wisconsin or downtown Chicago, you're getting the same neurology team, seeing the patient and assessing the patient. So telestroke has been a huge part of this and very helpful to integrate the network quickly. I'm not going to talk about Viz and Join and Rapid. I think we've talked about this before here. So these are, I will answer any questions you may have. These are excellent tools, but they are only addressing one issue, which is, yes, you have an algorithm detects a disease. And imagine in a system like this, we have more than 200 CT scanners going on. So you're getting a number of images a day that is incredible in terms of to manage that actually became the biggest issue than just having a tool to control that. So this is an example of how many patients 65 years old or more, and this is that were screened by each month with an LVO. So you know, on average 250 to 400 cases of patients that are 65 years old or these patients then have a reimbursement. So this is finishing now, but it's called the NTAP. So this is a way to pay for your AI in a way. So it's very important to, was very important to keep track of that. This is going away now, unfortunately. Another tool that I thought was very interesting that we started, this is a project with Rapid, and recently Viz also added the aneurysm tool. But what is interesting about this is the ability to not only identify aneurysms, but also then after is to track the aneurysm if it's changing size or growth. So that's kind of the concept that I'm going to be sharing more and more with you, is the ability not only to detect things, but how to organize the data and how to use that for you with the integration with the clinical data too, and potentially research. So here you have the tool. It identifies the aneurysms, gives you the size and the shape, and then these you can also use this for potentially planning of surgery. So you can have an embed on this, and this is how beautiful this gets. You don't need to use only this tool, but you can use SimCure and other simulators with the data you require. As long as you integrate the data, you're going to be able to also plan the surgical treatments. And in this case, you can actually simulate a device specific. And this is a case that you can show different type of flow diverters. And you can, this is actually a case we did at WNC. This is just showing a complex lesion. This is the Siemens rendering, cadaveric rendering. So it looks like this is a real case, but you can transform in a cadaveric idea. So it's not like, it's a very beautiful image of it. But the idea here is that you do a segmentation of the data, and then you can develop your planning of your treatment. And also you can actually basically study the aneurysm in a way that is incredible. This is also used today to go to a Mantis platform. So you can use a digital simulation as well as a 3D print of this. So that integration of data is what we're talking about. We're not talking about getting USBs, connecting, getting the files from one place to the other. This is all integrated within, if you do a scan anywhere in the system, you can get the images and do this post-processing, as well as track the patient over time if it's changing. So this is the different flow diverter sizes and the impact will cause in the aneurysm. And I think, and this is an interesting concept, which is more and more you're going to see the ability to predict how the device is going to land and simulate that. But look at this. So now you have a database of all the cases that are coming through. And then whenever the patient comes back for a follow-up, it identifies that the patient's back. And then you can have a comparison using AI of what is the change on the aneurysm over time. So what else is new? And this is really the cool stuff. As you integrated this, we start talking to DNV. You start getting also some awards of all the hospitals that are involved. And it's pretty busy season when you do a DNV review. Now we're doing a few days, but you do the whole network together. You don't do each hospital at one time. So this is really powerful. What I really want to talk to you today is how you have the AI of the AIs. And so the newest concept is that rapid viz, you can see here, we end up having tons of AIs. You have this stuff looking for cardiac, lungs, and all kinds of AIs in your system. So you need to find a way that you use AI to help the algorithms, independent algorithms of different specialties to then be organized. Because ultimately what you want is that your patient, doesn't matter which AI, so you get a picture modality, any MRI, endoscopy, pictures in the OR, all those files have to come together to that one patient. And then you need to use all the AIs that are available and then coordinate that information. So the only way to do this is by having a system that you actually get each data file that comes in, and you actually, we call pixelization. You basically have to create there's no more, if you go to your CAT scanner today, there will be 5 to 10 different protocols for CT of the head. So your AI you'll be assigning, if you do an audit today, I guarantee to you that you're probably not sending all your images to AI, because there are different protocols and the programming is only for a certain protocol. And so what you need to do is to start eliminating the names that are given by the imaging modality and create a language that AI understands. And doesn't matter what type of how you register that image, it will be transformed in the data set that the AI links to that patient. So you start eliminating the labeling for each modality that you do. And why this is interesting? Well, ultimately, the integration of this allows you then that when a patient comes in, it recognizes which algorithms you have used in the past, and then you can actually compare the study with the next images that you're doing. We're not quite comparing between different imaging modalities, but certainly within the same imaging modality. And this is not part of rapid or vis, but rapid and vis are part of that, and basically. And so here is more or less how this gets protected. But the idea is that in the end, if you have a patient with a certain disease, you have an aneurysm that is 5 millimeters anterior communicating artery, what this does, it allows you then to, it flags you. In this case, this is an X-ray. So it flags you, yes, there's pathology. No, there's no pathology. So it brings it up to the attention of the team. This imaging has an abnormality. And then it compares to previous images to see if there is a change in this. So the picture on the left lower corner is comparing the previous study to the new study, and also picking up on any type of new abnormalities potentially can have. And then it looks into Epic for clinical information on that patient. So now you have not only an imaging file that is able to be interpreted by this AI, but it gets also the clinical information that tells this is a patient that has these characteristics. So if we have all our institutions doing the same, you can actually say today, like, I wanted to know how a patient with an ACOM aneurysm 5 millimeters will do at 65 years old with diabetes, hypertension. So it's a data set that can be then compared to different institutions, and you can actually see the outcome after coiling or after clipping, and start getting data of how patients with a similar disease, similar clinical picture, different types of treatments, they fare over time. And this is an example of a patient that had a lung cancer with a chemotherapy. And then you can see that over time, the lesion grew in size. And that means that this goes in the data set as a lesson of how if you treat this patient with this protocol, with exact clinical characteristics and imaging characteristics, you can relate to see how many patients in your data set from multiple institutions have this type of condition. So it's really an interesting concept of how to bring your AI, make your AI smarter even. Okay, this is now shifting gears a little bit. I talked about integrating the network and AI of the AIs. The next level for us too, we're just starting this protocol of doing basically looking at the workflow today is if you could eliminate contrast to detect large vessel occlusion. So imagine how fast today you move your patients, and you guys have great times. But look at if you have a mothership situation and you could actually decide to go to the angel suite once you eliminate the chance of intracranial hemorrhage, and there is a high probability there is an LVO just by a plain CAT scan, no contrast. So no contrast is given, and then you have a workflow like this. So you go directly from seeing the patient to CAT scan, and the plain CAT scan will call your team to say, this patient has basically a high probability of an LVO. Now, depending on the hospital system, this could be up to an hour. Many places, maybe 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it's time you gain. And if you're going to transfer a patient, that's actually pretty helpful too, because you can go in any hospital in the countryside and you can actually activate your transport between your hospital, your transport system with a CAT scan on. You don't need to wait for the CTA. The patient can be receiving the thrombolytics, so you get the CAT scan. And I don't know your workflow, if you do your thrombolytics in the CAT scan or if you get the patient out to the CAT scan prior to do the CTA with contrast. But interesting enough, in some hospitals, you actually have to get the CAT scan, come back to the ER, get your thrombolytic, and go back for CTA if you need it. So you're moving away completely from that, and you are actually standardizing this across the network and making more efficient and calling your transportation much faster. So this is the initial publication. This is from Mark Rebo in Barcelona. You can see here the data sets of comparing different patients using, of course, in this case, they did do the comparison with the ground truth was a CTA, but they did the screening of the imaging with the methinks algorithm, and that showed these numbers here. So if you use methinks LVO, which is a top table, the sensitivity was extremely good already just with the methinks LVO, just using the imaging. But if you use methinks LVO plus, that means that you add NIH to that data set. So you do the CAT scan, you do an NIH, then it increases definitely your specificity on this screening. So this is a very interesting way to enhance the ability of AI detecting and large vessel occlusion, not only by imaging, but adding a little bit of clinical information. And down below, you have actually how that pan out when you use the different vessels and the different types of detection strength for using only the algorithm versus algorithm and NIH. So I think it was definitely very interesting for us to be part of this project. When we look into only Illinois, how much we would gain if we didn't have to do the CTA and went directly from CT scan, we start seeing like an incredible decrease in times. And I think that very much as we're talking today of going direct to angio, this is becoming a workflow that is maybe in between to that. You know, you're trying to screen the patient with a little bit of imaging as opposed to just come directly to angio and do the imaging in the angio suite. I don't know if we're going to have time, and maybe today we can discuss a little bit of that, you know, like what is the trend here? Are we just getting a screening on the field and going directly to angio? There are issues with that. But at the same time, if you stop to get a CAT scan, either in a drip and ship situation, or if you do in a mothership situation, you're freeing up your angio suite, but you're having a little bit more certainty of that. You do spend a little more time than going direct to angio, perhaps, but it's better than having to do a CT and a CTA. So that's where we are with this. So I think that I hope this is appealing to you, that how you coordinate or integrate a stroke network is really using AI as an essential part of making this work. And but I think the most important thing is that we need to do the AI for the AIs. I think we're going to have all these algorithms of looking at different things, but ultimately, if you are responsible for the administration of these data sets to do the post-processing, it's going to be key to organize that. And I'll give you an example of another project which is a little bit of sharing how you make a patient have all the different modalities connected to the one patient, so that when you receive the information, you get, I don't know how it is in your hospital, but not infrequently, you have a PAC system for radiology images, but you may have the GI images in another type of storage, or you may have the cardiac even studies, not in your PACs, but in a different type of database. So when you are in a very I guess many hospitals and you're having patients going from one place to the other within the network, there's no reason why you should not have all the image sets connected to that patient. And this is not talking only radiology modalities, but also OR pictures too, and any type of movies, any type of image file. One very interesting easy concept of when you do telestroke, we have a video file of that patient. So that video file showing the patient with a weakness or a facial weakness, or EMS teams, when you have on the field potentially a video of the patient, that video can be used to compare to a video on rehab later on to show the patient either improved or did not improve, but you don't have now to do an MRS scale. You actually have a true video file showing how that patient, you can perhaps argue that the AI will be able to quantify the improvement or not of that patient down the line by having these files. But you'd never be able to do that if everything is dead in the water. If you do a telestroke consultation and that video file gets erased or you don't store that, it will never be able to be used as part of that patient medical record. We do have some AIs that are acquiring video and speech files to then document, and that's called CV-aid, by the way. So that is a way to do that already today. So the main issue here is that how you do this is isolate this, you remove the silos, the imaging stay in the hospital, and try to coordinate all basically more of a patient-driven file storage. So here you have radiology, cardiology, all these different files coming together. This is a different solution. I mentioned to you the AI of the AIs. Here's a different story. It's this workflow here, which is basically there's this, it's a Diacom router called Ambra, and these Ambra files, what allows you to do is that any image that is done, and this is, I think, for the guys here, Eric, Neiman, and Ricardo, you're gonna really appreciate this. Your Angel Suite today, if you have, I don't know if you noticed, but when you export the files from your Angel Suite to PACS, that's one option. But if you go into that drop-down menu of how many destinations you can send that, I know you're working on this, but you will be adding VisAI, Rapid, and then potentially SimCure and other destinations. But all this is done with this. You can anonymize the data set, and you can also have the different destinations connected to that. What that allows you to do is basically have a direct communication hardwire between your system, Angel Suite or CT or MRI, to the different modalities of that you or post-processing that you'd like to do. So it enhances your ability to do post-processing on the images you have from Philips or Siemens. I think this is an example of a CTP, a multi-phase CT. You can get a collateral score on your Angel Suite, and this is for the Iacono workflow. And not only you can do that, you can then send this to Rapid and Vis and try to get CTP results. This will come in your app. Today, we receive our angiograms in our Vis app. So you can see actually not only the CT, MRI, but you can also see the angiograms, and you can actually help you make your decision, compare the studies over time. So this is the case. Now imagine that situation that you have the file, you have the OCT file, you have the DSA file, you do the simulation of that, and then if this can be sent to the robotic intervention, we'll talk a little bit about that later today, but that's how this information needs to be going from basically diagnosis to treatment. And so where we're heading with this, I think ultimately an integrated network, it doesn't stay only at the hospital level. So the next step will be basically how you track the patients on the field, and the wearable devices are the ones that, and this is the top right is CV8. So you can see the video file of that patient pre and post treatment, but also the ability to have more and more data sets. So our network advocate just purchased a company that builds wearables. And the idea is that you can locate the patient, so just to give an idea, recently we were in Japan at the World Federation meeting, and to get into Japan, you had to download this Join app and a family of Join app that actually was your COVID attestation to the government of Japan. So you upload your vaccination, you upload also your position. So any city you were in Japan, you had to let them know, no fever, I'm in Kyoto today, and everything is okay. So there was a tracker on that. It's called My SOS. And that tracker had the ability to then identify who was close to you. Everybody was being tracked in Japan while we were there, not only the citizens, but also visitors. And I know a lot of people are looking to each other. I don't think this is a good idea, but we potentially can track all the team members of our Angels. So sometimes we did this for kicks just to see, like when people are coming for a stroke code, you actually can see the little dots where they're coming from to the hospital. As you can track the ambulance, so you can see how far the ambulance is going from one hospital to another, but you also can see how your tech, your nurses, and the doctor, where they are en route in relation to the ambulance. So then you can do it, detect if somebody got a flat tire or something is delayed with somebody, you can activate somebody else to help out in the code. This is then, if you know the patient not doing very well in the field, or this is actually the paramedics, they will have it's called joint triage. If we use a FAST-CD, but you can choose any scale, race, or so forth. In the field, they will connect with the stroke team, not only to the emergency room, but they can send to the stroke team. We're piloting this now. You can see that we would actually receive a direct communication from the field and be able to then start following the tracking of that patient, where they are, and talking to the ambulance at real time prior to coming to the hospital. So I think that's where I wanted to provoke you with these thoughts, and see if this is something you find interesting or not. But it's really the only way we're finding to integrate our stroke network is to using AI and organizing the data that we receive. And definitely looking forward to have other medical centers doing the same, so that we can actually find same disease, clinical history, and treatment, and start comparing data that way. I think that's going to be a fantastic way as we integrate AI to Epic. So you have not only those isolated images, but now you have your clinical, and you can anonymize and then compare the data sets between medical centers. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Lopez?
Thank you for great talk. Have you had any discussion about these AIs with radiologists, and what are they on board, and do you get any pushback, any of that?
Yeah, so it is an initiative from the cerebrovascular program, and we definitely, and Kiffin is here now, but she was really instrumental with doing that. The way it was a very limited release in the beginning. So I think there is something about AI culture that you need to work on. And that is, it will start, we definitely communicated with all the chiefs of radiology, every department of every hospital we went. And also the CT administration folks. So not only the radiologists, but also the folks that actually do the imaging and so forth and coordinate that. The administrators are very key for that in each hospital. Why is that? Because it's not a one-time deal. Once you get that processing in place, every new CT scanner you acquire after, you have to audit from time to time to make sure that all the different protocols are actually being sent to your AI. And now with a subdural aneurysm and different, in the beginning, maybe they were sending only the stroke codes for LVO detection. But many times now you really would like to have any CT, not CTA only, but also plain CTs sent. And I think that that is an ongoing then management of the relationship. What is interesting now is that after a few years going now, what helped the discussion was the NTAP. So we had to talk to radiologists to ask them to do a dictation saying that they used AI on their interpretation of the results. And that conversation then made us, because we had introduced and we involved them from the beginning on this project, was an easy discussion to have. The hospital system was happy because now we're getting some reimbursement for the AI. And but I think I foresee this being now a constant managing of that, and you have to bring them to the table. But I do feel that the concerns sometimes come as you add emergency room crews, different type of nurse staffing in pre-hospital and in EMS. Who are you going to share the information with is key. So that's why we use a communication tool separate to our AI. Because of course, today there are ways that you can isolate a chat without sharing images with a helicopter crew, ambulance drivers, and everything. But we decided to keep that separate from the beginning. So it's a communication is going to be key for the success of this. But the culture on AI is one to start doing these webinars constantly and keep that working that message.
Any more questions, guys? Early morning, everybody, quiet, no questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.